The top stories tonight in Y News. The House of Representatives is all geared up as President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. is set to deliver his first State of the Nation address on Monday.
More Filipinos want to hear President Marcos Jr.'s roadmap for economic recovery during his first State of the Nation address.
A plan to institutionalize the blended learning mode in schools has been approved by the President, but only for certain areas and circumstances.
And in light of the ongoing political and economic crisis in Sri Lanka, the Department of Foreign Affairs is attempting to repatriate over 100 Filipinos there.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, July 20, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. I am Harley Gado.
First in the news, the House of Representatives is preparing for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s first State of the Nation address, or SONA, on Monday. A larger than 1,000 guests are expected. Stricter security and health protocols will also be implemented by the House. Ray Pelayo reports why.
Amid high COVID-19 cases, the first State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will have full capacity set up. Stricter health and screening protocols will be implemented during SONA in order to avoid infections. A negative RT-PCR test for no more than 48 hours should be present for every guest. According to HREP Secretary General Mark Mendoza, former presidents, judges, members of diplomatic corps, and governors are among the 1,360 guests who have been invited. About 80% of them, including former Presidents Erap Estrada and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, confirmed that they will physically attend the SONA. This will be the first time where more guests are invited during SONA after attendees were limited during the peak of COVID-19 cases in the past 2 years.
Ang gusto ng Malacanang, actually Pangulo, is maging simple lang. Simple at very modern traditional ng SONA.
For those who are unable to attend in person, online attendance is an option, while a disinfection system was installed to ensure the safety of attendees within the plenary hall. The newly renovated plenary was unveiled earlier today. Only the session hall can hold about 350 people. They also want to hold face-to-face sessions, according to Mendoza. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Philippine National Police will arrest violent protesters during President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s State of the Nation address. Rallies will also be prohibited from burning effigies in the middle of the street. Leia Ilagan will tell us why.
The Philippine National Police will exercise maximum tolerance in dealing with protesters during President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s State of the Nation address. Additionally, the PNP is prepared to detain violent protesters and those who insist on marching toward the Batasan complex.
Kung magkakaroon po ng sakitan, definitely po ay hindi po maiiwasan na magkaroon po ng arrest dyan. At may mga naka-standby po tayo ng mga bus po ng BGMP. Yung ating pong kahabaan po ng Commonwealth Avenue will be a no rally zone po. Para na rin po ito sa kapakanan din po ng ating mga kababayan na lahat po dyan ay dumadaan papunta po sa kanilang mga hanap buhay.
It is also prohibited to burn effigies in the middle of the road.
We discourage the burning of effigy sa ating mga lansangan. This is prohibited under Section 3 or Para G of BP 880.
General De Leon said rallies can only conduct their program in freedom parks like the Quezon City Memorial Circle, at the University of the Philippines, and at the Commission on Human Rights. Clea Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, a political analyst says more Filipinos want to hear the economic recovery roadmap of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. during his first State of the Nation address. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
When President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. delivers his first State of the Nation address on July 25, the public wants him to outline his plans and programs for the country's economic recovery. Michael Henry Yusinko, a policy analyst, claims that addressing the issue of economic recovery will undoubtedly address the issues with public transportation and education.
Ang talagang top of mind ng mga tao talaga is economic recovery. Pasok lahat dyan yung problema natin sa public transportation, particularly sa Metro Manila. Pasok din dyan yung problema natin sa yung pag-respond sa pandemic.
Mass transportation is one among the issues that the Marcos administration should address, according to Yusinko. He adds a project to modernize the transportation system's infrastructure must be included.
But if you look at it from the perspective of the nation, you will realize na yung public transport system natin is very poor. So papasok na dyan yung mga airports natin na pangit, yung mga seaports natin na pangit, and most importantly, hindi sila connected with one another.
In a Facebook post from last Sunday, President Marcos Jr. invited Filipinos to listen to his first SONA, in which he will discuss his major policies and priorities. The chief executive is expected to list his top priorities and ask Congress to approve legislation that would support his administration's program execution. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The executive secretary, or ES, is called the little president because he helps the chief executive manage the large government bureaucracy. But a political analyst questions the competence of ES attorney Victor Rodriguez under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Rosa Licons explains why.
The responsibilities of an executive secretary, the chief alter ego of the President of the Philippines, are outlined in Executive Order No. 292, Administrative Code of 1987. This includes directly assisting the President in the administration of Philippine government affairs, implementing presidential directives, orders, and decisions, deciding on matters not requiring personal presidential attention, exercising supervision and control over various units and agencies under the President's office, exercising primary authority to sign papers by authority of the President, attest executive orders and other presidential issuances, providing consultative, research, fact-finding, and advisory service to the President, among others. Apart from this, the President can also task the ES other duties. However, for political strategies and founder and CEO of Publicus Asia Incorporated, Malu Tiquia, the current ES of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is not competent enough to handle these responsibilities, especially now that the office of the Cabinet Secretary has been abolished.
And I'm going out of the limb, no? I don't think the current Executive Secretary has the experience, the wherewithal, considering the style of the president. You need someone who has had, years of experience, both in the national and the local, as well as can do policy. Diba? Yes, there is a whole bureaucracy under the office of the Executive Secretary. But at the end of the day, the decision maker is the Executive Secretary. The same with PMS.
She added, ES together with the Special Assistant to the President and the Presidential Management Staff have been more powerful than the past administration.
Si ES becomes a powerful position. Hindi na lang yan pushing papers. Diba? Ang dati sabi, ay pushing papers lang naman yan, hindi glorified clerk. But now,
parang stamp siya.
he becomes now really a little president.
Attorney Rodriguez was the spokesperson of PBBM during the 2022 national elections. Since 2013, he has been the president of Quezon City Trial Lawyers League and managing counsel of Rodriguez and Partners law firm. Meanwhile, the executive secretary has to be confirmed by Congress Commission on Appointments. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, firefighters and water bomber aircrafts are battling with wildfires across the wine-rowing area of southwestern France. Ia de Vera will give us the details live. Yes, Ia, go ahead.
Mariel, a 39-year-old man who was taken into custody on Monday, is suspected to have deliberately started the fire, which has torn through the woodlands south of Bordeaux. The suspect was also questioned in 2012 for allegedly starting a forest fire, but investigation was shelved in 2014 for lack of evidence. Along with another blaze which investigators are treating as accidental, the fires have now burned more than 19,000 hectares of forest and vegetation, while more than 2,000 firefighters worked day and night to contain them. Thousands of people were forced to leave their homes and summer vacation spots since the two fires broke out last week. Mariel, heat waves and droughts have made wildfires more frequent and destructive across Europe, with wildfires also keeping emergency crews in England, Germany, Portugal, and Spain busy. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, Ia de Vera, for that live report. United States of America's Southwest should brace for more extreme water cuts starting next year. Mavian Dog tells us why live. Yes, Maeve, please go ahead.
Mariel, latest forecasts show that Lake Mead, fed by the Colorado River, is critically suffering low water levels. This is due to the multi-year drought while meeting the demands of millions of people from southwestern U.S. states. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation's latest report shows that Lake Mead is just over 1,040 feet above sea level, having dropped 10 feet in 2 months and dipping below the key threshold of 1,050 feet. Earlier this year, Tier 1 shortage was already declared in the states of Arizona and Nevada, as well as Mexico, who use water from the Colorado River, impacting agricultural water use. And if the water levels continue to drop in next month's report, federal officials will declare a Tier 2 shortage starting in January 2023. At Tier 3, Mariel, possibly starting in January 2024 as the forecast suggests, water restrictions may extend to household and industrial water use. Lake Mead, being the country's largest reservoir, provides water to roughly 25 million people, while the full Colorado River system provides to up to 40 million people and irrigates more than 5 million acres of farmland. The plummeting water levels, Mariel, has also led to a few discoveries, including sunken boats, a World War II-era vessel, and human or skeletal remains. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, Maven Dog, for that live report. The National Health Service in England is pushing for a number of measures to encourage people to see their dentists more often for checkups. Secretary of State for Health and Social Care of the United Kingdom, Steve Barclay, said they have invested $1.7 billion to support dentistry during the pandemic and promoting major changes to ensure patients' access to vital dental care. Patients' checkup will depend on the assessment of the overall oral health that could range from 6 months to 2 years interval. Although the plans for reform seem likely only marginal changes and paper over the cracks, Sean Carlwood, chair of the BDA's General Dental Practice Committee, said it will help in keeping NHS dentists or ensure millions get the urgent dental care they need. Amid the rising number of coronavirus cases across Europe, the World Health Organization warns that the pandemic is not yet over. Nerissa Dando will give us the details live.
Yes, Nerissa. Mariel, Europe now accounts for nearly half of global COVID-19 infections as the cases tripled in the past 6 weeks, driven by the Omicron variant's super infectious relatives. Nearly 3 million new COVID-19 infections and about 3,000 people have passed away last week alone in the European region. The World Health Organization's Europe Director Hans Kluisch stated that hospitalization rates across the continent also doubled. They are also set to increase further in the autumn from September to November and winter in December through to February. The rising rates of hospitalizations, as Kluisch added, continues to present a huge challenge to Europe's health workforce, with the ambulances lining outside hospitals, and hospitals are now too overloaded to accept new patients. To tackle this crisis, Mariel, the WHO Europe announced a new strategy urging countries to relaunch mitigation efforts and responses to severe disruptions on their healthcare systems. The strategy also outlines the recommendation for those 5 years old and above with weak immune systems to get a second dose, promote mask wearing indoors and on public transport, as well as better ventilation in crowded public spaces. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, Nerissa Dando, reporting live.
New Omicron subvariant cases were recorded in the Philippines. The new Omicron BA.2.75 Omicron subvariant, on the other hand, is more transmissible and evades COVID-19 vaccines, said an infectious disease expert. Rosalie Cos reports why.
There are 910 detected new Omicron subvariants in the Philippines, based on the Department of Health's report this afternoon. 816 of which are BA.5, 42 BA.4, and 52 BA.2.12.1 Omicron subvariants. Additionally, Undersecretary Vergere claims that BA.5 is more transmissible than the original Omicron and BA.2 Omicron subvariants when compared to other Omicron subvariants.
Siya po ay nakakaapekto ng ating immune mechanisms na dulot ng ating bakuna. It is more transmissible and it also affects our immunity given by our vaccines.
Every region in the country detected BA, except the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARMM. The DOH is verifying the travel history of the detected Omicron subvariants. Meanwhile, infectious diseases expert Dr. Rontin Solante said the new BA.2.75 is more transmissible and dubbed as Centaurus, which could cause severe symptoms. Advocates in the country are still waiting for more research on the BA.2.75 Omicron subvariant.
If you look at the genetic tree of the Omicron variant, as they evolve, there is always that increased transmissibility and the ability to evade the vaccines, the protection that we have with vaccines.
The DOH advised that booster vaccinations be increased in order to provide additional protection to Filipinos. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, assures to fast-track the process of delisting or removal of those 4-piece beneficiaries who are no longer qualified for the Conditional Cash Transfer Program. Dante Almento reports.
DSWD Secretary Erwin Tulfo revealed that there are 15 million Filipinos who are poor. There are more than 10 million people on the waiting list for the government's Conditional Cash Transfer Program, also known as the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program, or 4Ps. Secretary Tulfo certifies that they are fast-tracking the delisting process of the 1.3 million 4Ps beneficiaries who are already disqualified. The process would be completed in September 2022.
I-inform po namin mga ito na hindi na po kayo makakatanggap ng 4Ps kasi po kayo hindi na po identified as nasa belonging to the poor classification. Ibig sabihin ho, kulang na o wala na sila doon sa requirement para maging poor o tumanggap. Ano po ba yun? Abay, kung graduate na ho yung mga anak po nila, di ho ba may trabaho na sila, medyo malaki na ho kinikita, yung mga anak nila na sa OFWs na ho, natutulungan na ho sila, inaalis na ho natin.
The DSWD would immediately process those in the waiting list to be included in the beneficiaries after the delisting. They will continue to be evaluated in order to establish their qualifications.
Yung kanila pong pwesto na yun, ibigay naman natin doon sa mga wala pong natatanggap at all. Wala pa pong yung isang kahig, isang tuka o yung isang beses lang isang araw kumain. Sila naman ho yung ipapasok natin sa lista.
There are currently 4.4 million 4Ps beneficiaries around the nation. However, 1.3 million of them will be eliminated before the year ends due to qualifications problem. The DSWD stresses that it is the new administration's mandate that those who are unqualified be delisted. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte revealed earlier that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. had agreed to develop a plan to institutionalize blended learning. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
The Department of Education is formulating a plan that will take a blended mode of instruction for certain areas and circumstances. This is in line with Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte's directive that all schools switch to face-to-face instruction in November. In her statement, Vice President Duterte said that she had asked President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. for advice on the viability of institutionalizing blended learning at their third cabinet meeting. She continued by saying that the President had agreed to institutionalize the blended learning approach to instruction and that the plan should stipulate that face-to-face classes would take precedence while taking blended learning into consideration. Duterte added that the DepEd order for schools to establish 5-day face-to-face classes by November 2 still resides. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Because of the ongoing economic crisis, the Department of Foreign Affairs has posted Sri Lanka under Alert Level 2. The Foreign Affairs Department reports that over 100 Filipinos want to return to the Philippines. The department targets to begin repatriation this month. Aileen Cerudo will tell us why.
The restrictions in Sri Lanka due to the economic crisis, says the Department of Foreign Affairs, make it hard to organize sweeper flights. According to DFA Migrant Workers Affairs Undersecretary Eduardo Jose de Vega, the department is already looking into commercial flights for Filipinos living in Sri Lanka who want to return to the Philippines.
May mga commercial flights. Tuloy pa rin commercial flights. So isang paraan yan na pinag-isipan namin ay fund yung mga plane tickets para sa gusto makauwi. Yung 100 na uuwi, hopefully within the next week, next 2 weeks, nag-uumpisa na yan magsiuwian. No? That's our goal.
According to DFA data, there are at least 700 Filipinos in Sri Lanka, the majority of whom have families living there already. Apart from organizing flights for repatriation, the DFA is also coming up with ways on how to send assistance to Filipinos who wish to stay in Sri Lanka. Undersecretary De Vega, however, says it will be a challenge to send financial assistance due to the restrictions in Sri Lanka amid the economic crisis.
Ang problema po, hindi basta-basta ngayon makapasok ng pera sa Sri Lanka. Because may mga bagong pamahalaan o yung pamahalaan because of inflation or other regulations, gagawin lahat ng paraan para may maabot na assistance po. Pero right now, ang priority yung gusto umuwi.
Meanwhile, the government promised those repatriated Filipinos from Sri Lanka would get assistance to aid in their recovery. The DFA reports that the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration is still providing jobs or a livelihood for repatriated Filipinos under the reintegration program. Aileen Cerulo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
In a parliamentary vote, Sri Lanka's parliament members have elected Ranil Wickremesinghe as their new president. Joselito Liquido tells us why live. Yes, Joselito, go ahead.
Good evening, Mariel.
After facing off two rivals in the parliamentary vote today in Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe has succeeded and won with 134 votes. Wickremesinghe is a seasoned politician and a six-time prime minister with a wide experience in diplomatic and international affairs. He was appointed by the previous president Gotabaya Rajapaksa as the prime minister back in May, aiming to restore the country's international credibility. And after Rajapaksa has fled the country, Wickremesinghe has acted as the president. With his victory today, he will carry out the presidential term until November 2024. In his address to the parliament, the elected president emphasized that Sri Lanka is in a very difficult situation and that they have big challenges ahead as the country's population struggles with shortages in basic essentials, including medicine, fuel, and food. The 73-year-old president is currently leading talks on an economic bailout package with the International Monetary Fund. Marielle?
Joselito, and what is the country's or the public's reaction to President Ranil Wickremesinghe's success as the new president of Sri Lanka?
Well, Marielle, the public, particularly those demonstrators, view Wickremesinghe as part of the elite politicians who mishandle the country's finances. That is why for the past fortnight, they have been consistently calling for him to resign. Wickremesinghe's opponents also fear that his presidency will represent an extension of the Rajapaksa's rule. But Marielle, Wickremesinghe calls for the opposition parties to work with his government towards a political unity. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, for that live report. Russia holds a trilateral summit with Iran and Turkey to gain support amid conflicts with Ukraine and Syria, as well as the receding global market. Paul Gatchalian will tell us why live. Yes, Paul, please go ahead.
Marielle, Russian President Vladimir Putin's recent conference with Iran and Turkey was made to symbolize Russia's international presence after becoming more and more isolated. The summit came just days after US President Joe Biden conferred with Israel and other Middle Eastern countries to promote a boycott of Russian, Chinese, and Iranian influence. Putin during the conference gained support from Iran over its military invasion of Ukraine, but clashed with Turkey over talks on the Syrian conflict. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei supported the independent and strong Russia in making the first move on Ukraine instead of being attacked by NATO's alliances first and causing a different war. However, the solidarity between Russia and Iran was not shared by Turkey, which is adamant about pushing back threatening Syrian Kurdish fighters from its borders to create a safe zone between Turkey and Syria. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi warned against Turkey's planned incursion, citing that Syria would also be harmed in that attack and that this issue should quickly end. On the other hand, Putin thanked President Erdogan for moving forward with possibly reactivating Ukrainian grain exports, even though some issues remain unresolved. Shipment is likely to resume if the West lifts sanctions on Russian grain exports. In a closing statement, all countries will work together to strengthen their cooperation in international security. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, for that live report. Residents in Canada are facing a competitive housing market. This as interest rates rise and house buying market cools off. Miguel Moldez explains why.
Some parts of Canada are seeing rent fees go up by as much as 28% in the same year. Renters in search of homes are finding it difficult to get units in their price range. Experts say that the rental market may become even more competitive, and this is a result of rising mortgage interest rates. Many homebuyers may have to postpone purchasing homes and continue renting. Lower-income Canadians such as recent graduates and newcomers will be most affected by the competitive rental market. This is why many are using various methods to save and stretch their dollar.
Malaki rin po talaga yung mga naging adjustment namin dito sa Canada dahil nga sa mataas na presyo ng bilihin ngayon. kailangan talaga namin dito magtipid kasi kailangan ko pa rin talaga magpadala ng pera sa Pilipinas monthly. So, ang nangyari na lang po, dito na lang po talaga kami nag-adjust. So, tipid-tipid na lang po ang ginawa namin.
Sa ngayon, doble budget talaga yung ginagawa namin. Talagang tipid sa budget ko noon. Ang budget namin sa pagkain namin, let's say $150 or $200 a week. Ngayon, doble na siya talaga. Pero, ang ginagawa na lang namin, imbes na bumili kami ng karne, kada palengke, minsan puro gulay na lang, mas healthy pa siya. Saka fish, medyo mura-mura kesa sa mga karne, mga manok ngayon. Medyo tight sa budget pero ginagawa namin ng paraan para magkasya yung sinasahod namin mag-asawa sa bawat buwan.
Miguel Maldez, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
The Department of Migrant Workers opens a command center for overseas Filipino workers who may require repatriation. Asher Kadapan Jr. will give us the details live. Yes, Asher, go ahead.
Yes, Will, in response to President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s directive, the One Repatriation Command Center was finally launched today. The Department of Migrant Workers created this to help OFWs who are requesting to come back to the Philippines, regardless of their status in the originating country. The command center is capable of accommodating over 2,000 cases per day, and they promise to do their best to bring the OFWs back to their families. This is by collaborating with different concerned agencies, including the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration and the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Ang layunin namin, kaya namin naisip itong One Repat Center under ng Department of Migrant Workers ay magkatulong-tulungan kami imbis na magkaturo-turuan kung paano mapauwi ang isang naghihinagpis na OFW.
The OFW's relatives or any concerned persons in their community may seek assistance from the office of the One Repatriation Command Center in EDSA Ortigas Avenue in Mandaluyong City from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. Those coming from the provinces or other countries may also reach the Migrant Workers Department through their 24/7 hotline 1348 or by sending an email to repat@dmw.gov.ph. And that's the latest for tonight. Back to you, Will.
Yes, thank you, Asher Kadapan Jr., reporting live from Quezon City.
Senators Pia and Alan Peter Cayetano, together with doctors and health advocates, are appealing to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to veto the Vape bill. In a press conference Wednesday, the lawmakers and doctors call on the president to listen to the science and experts, saying that the bill will affect thousands of lives, especially the youth. Health professionals stressed that the measure would only encourage non-smokers to try vaping, which might lead to addiction and other long-term effects. They also opposed the lowering of age limit for purchasing vaping products from 21 years old to 18 years old. They also decry the broadening of flavors and the designation of the Department of Trade and Industry to regulate vaping products instead of the Food and Drug Administration.
Sana po sa SONA ay bigyan niya ng regalo ang buong bayan na i-veto ang vape bill at konsidera na ito po ay health policy at hindi po bigyan ng chance yung kita or commercial interest ng tobacco industry.
It is not harm reduction. It is harm introduction by introducing non-smokers to smoking in the future use of alcohol in abusive quantities, and illicit drug use. We believe that the legislators in the Senate and the Congress who signed this bill have betrayed the people's trust. So I repeat the call on President Bongbong Marcos, please veto this bill.
tayo po ay may mga regulasyon na dati at ito po ay nagre-regulate na sa ating vape at smoking at ang kailangan lang natin is police power katulad po talamak po ang mga vape bills sa mga eskwelahan less than 100 meters away from the eskwelahan.
The bill was transmitted to the palace on June 24, 2022. This means Marcos has only 4 days or until July 24 to act on the measure or else it will lapse into law. Senator Allen says they will question the validity of the bill before the Supreme Court should it become a law. This as he raises a possible legal question surrounding the status of the bill, which was a product of the previous 18th Congress.
Many people didn't know that the industry went to see President Duterte and he made it very clear to them na i-veto niya. So anong ginawa ng both houses? Hinold yung bill until last minute tapos pinadala. Kapag yung Congress wala na at yung bill hindi naman napirmahan, hindi rin na veto, pwede bang yung susunod na presidente ang pipirma?
The younger Cayetano adds he is willing to debate with any lawmaker who will refile the proposed measure in the 19th Congress, while Senator Pia says she will write a letter to President Marcos about their call, adding that she is willing to meet and convince the president to veto the measure should be given the chance.
And I acknowledge na when you are new in the office, sa dami ng problema, pwedeng hindi pa niya nalaman lahat to. Pues sana po mabigyan natin ng tamang impormasyon ang presidente para makagawa siya ng tamang desisyon.
The Department of Health, or DOH, seeks to provide free medical services to hospitals in the country. JP Nunez reports why.
Hospital staff members and the undersecretary in charge of the Department of Health will visit facilities to observe how they operate and what services they offer to patients. The PBBM administration, according to OIC Vergere, aims to duplicate free medical services already provided in hospitals into other healthcare facilities around the nation. Santa Ana Hospital and the Manila COVID-19 Isolation Facility were previously visited by Vergere.
So gusto natin magaya natin para naman dun sa iba nating ospital baka makuha natin how we can go about with those things. So yun yung pakay natin and we've asked of course City Mayor Sheila Lacuna to help us para naman makapag tayo sa ibang ospital.
Mayor of Manila City Hani Lacuna Pangan reports that the local government is giving COVID-19 patients free swab tests and free admission.
Open lagi tayo, hindi lang po sa mga Manileño kundi pati sa mga karatig lungsod natin. Libre pa rin pong swab testing. Siyempre libre din po yung mga COVID meds namin na available po. Yun po, lahat po, pati ang admission dito libre. Lahat po libre sa Maynila.
Tomorrow, the DOH will travel to Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao or BARM to confer with their health officials about health programs. On Friday, it will also travel to Marikina City. The Department of Health or DOH stated that it is requesting up to 300 billion pesos in health funding this year to provide universal health care. The budget is to be used to build more medical facilities, particularly in rural areas where the majority of medical services are inaccessible. Meanwhile, the DOH will begin a massive vaccination campaign called Pinas Lakas on July 26 with the goal of immunizing at least 50% of the targeted population eligible for booster doses. The program aims to reach at least 23 million vaccination for booster dose on the first 100 days of the administration. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of 1 Timothy, chapter 6, verse 8, it says, "And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content." And those are the reasons behind the news, July 20, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Harleen Delgado.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.